been above 300. January 2020 was the low point. But 320, Rajdeep, in the middle of all the adversity that we're dealing with, is remarkable.
And also remember that the 353 was when the Shiv Sena was part of the NDA and indeed the Akalis. So what you could say somewhere is that the NDA is holding its own and the opposition is simply not lifting, it's not taking off. You know, it's stuck where it is, and there is no evidence here of anti-incumbency. That's very clear, that the gap between the government and the opposition remains as wide as ever. That's the first really big takeaway that you can give from these numbers. And this is almost now 2 years. So almost halfway, some would say, just approaching the 2-year mark of Mr. Modi 2.0. That's interesting. And if you look at these numbers, it remains steady. I think that's the, you know, that's what gives you the analysis that this government has been able to retain its vote share.
This is great
and that's
news
very, very important.
From the government's perspective, but Gourav Vallabh, from the opposition's perspective, if this were a cricketing analogy, this is where the pitch, the weather condition, the team, everything is in your favor. If despite that you can't go out and score runs against the opposition bowlers, then when will you?
Rahul, I'm not making any question on the survey because every survey have its own biases and every survey have its strengths and weaknesses. But I had a very typical question and which I want the answer. Post 2019 means after 2019 Lok Sabha election, there were elections in 5 states. That is Haryana, Jharkhand, Bihar, Maharashtra and Delhi. I am asking you a simple question. In any of these 5 states, in all these 5 states except one, the Congress, I am talking only about Congress, the performance got improved. And in all 5 states, the BJP's performance deteriorated if you talk about number of seats or about the percentage. Talking about the pandemic, Rahul, I am statistically asking a question. Name any country in Southeast Asia whose fatality rate due to COVID is higher than ours. Name any country in Southeast Asia or in the entire world whose Q1 GDP declined by -23.9%. Name any country in the world whose per capita income reduced by -5.5%. Name any country in the world who had still not recovered because of corona. And last but not least, can you give me any parameter of governance, whether social, whether economic, whether political, any parameter of governance where the ranking of the country got improved? I'm asking a very simple question. Get me the answer. I'm not denying that.
You've made a very important observation, especially when it comes to state versus center. And we'll also come to our political analysts in a moment. But respond to that, Nalin Kohli, because while you can take satisfaction in these numbers, the truth is that in polls held since 2019 in states, on an average, the BJP's vote has declined. NDA's vote.
But Rajdeep, that's an academic point. Once again, who formed the government in Bihar? Who formed the government in Haryana? Okay, so the winning batsman didn't score as many runs as he scored the last time, but you still lost the match.
Rahul, there is a decline of about, on an average, 1 minute, sir. There is a decline on an average of about 13.5% in the NDA's vote share between centre and state.
It's of academic interest, Rajdeep.
No, the point he's trying to make, and I think which Nalin needs to respond to, our poll shows the popularity for NDA at the centre remains as high as it was in 2019. It is in state election, and we are entering an important state election here, is where there is a distinction between centre and state. Is that something that the BJP factors in, that the popularity of Mr. Modi and the BJP at the centre is much higher than your popularity at the state level? That's I think what Gourav Vallabh was trying to raise, and he also gave indicators which he suggests would reveal the fact that the government's performance is not as high as our mood of the nation suggests.
I have several things to say, so I'd just like to finish them one by one. I'll come to this part last. The first is with regards to the mood of the nation. I think your statistics make it very clear that the NDA, and particularly which is led by the BJP, and we bank a lot on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's popularity and the work of his government, reached a high point in 19, better than 14, then showed a dip downwards, which the lowest point is 2020 January. And then in the pandemic, notwithstanding anything and everything that the opposition wishes to say, has seen an upward climb. That too a depleted NDA, which means that the BJP as a political party is on the right track in terms of what people, and elections are won when people who are voters are convinced and put their fingers on the button. It doesn't happen by any discussion or any argument elsewhere. That's the first point. So there is something good happening in the government's performance and in the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. That's a clear message. Now people can find fault with that, people can find nuances to it. That's the blunt point. That the BJP has handled the pandemic well, and people are convinced that this government was on the right track given its agenda and the crisis. Second, with regards to the state election, I think Rahul has made an important point, and I thank him because that would have been my logical answer. Winning the match or being happy about brownie points that I scored better but lost the match is an attitude that we have no complaints about the Congress party. In fact, as far as we are concerned, we would like them to continue on this path. Keep patting their back that we have a good solid thing, because they probably need to understand that elections are won when you reach out to the people, and the people, the voters, are convinced about you. The difference between a mainstream political approach and what, if you will permit me to call, a fringe political approach, is that the mainstream political approach is focused on issues and is focused on solutions and is focused on agenda of performance.
Okay,
let me finish. One minute, Mr. Sardesai. There's been a lot of attacks made on
out of the 5 states, you have lost 3. I just want to put it, out of the 5 states, you have lost 3 since 2019.
Yes, of course we've lost it. These are facts. I mean, how can you dispute a fact? I'm not here to dispute facts.
Okay.
I mean, how can a fact be disputed? I mean, but let me finish my point. I said between a fringe political approach and a mainstream political approach is that the mainstream political approach focuses on issues, on performance, and a positive agenda for change. A fringe approach plays to the gallery. They have nothing to do with the ground. Now, as far as I make a comparison, yes, the Congress party is entitled, as every Indian citizen, to have a point of view and put out as many questions they want.
You know,
the problem is the Congress party never has answers. You can point out several questions asked.
Gourav Vallabh,
Congress can do its question answering. We are answerable to the people of India.
Gourav
and I think we repose our faith in what they decide.
You know, Gourav Vallabh respond. The fact is that the pitch was ideal in a way for the opposition. You've had the Chinese aggression, you've had a pandemic, you've had an economy in recession. Now, if in such times also the opposition is unable to lift itself, there's clearly something seriously wrong. You can go on targeting the Modi government for what you believe are its failures. But the public, as per the mood of the nation, is not willing to accept the opposition as a viable alternative. That's the problem.